Today I'm going to answer the age-old question that all car modification enthusiasts hate being asked, especially by their partners. How much did you spend on that? Because whenever I take this car to meets and shows, people get inside and see like the abundance of changes that have happened to the interior of this car and how unique and modified it is now, and always want to know, well, how much did that cost, or how much can I buy those bits for? And I've never priced it up because of two reasons. One, denial, and two, more denial. I'm into this for quite a lot of money, I think. And today we're going to break down how much I've actually spent making this one-of-one interior for my car. And I really don't know what to expect because, I don't know, I think the answer might shock even me. So let's get straight into it. The biggest thing that you see when you get into this car is Alcantara. There's a lot of it. I have it on the dash, behind the driver's console, on both sides of the doors, on the pillars, on the roof lining, around the boots. And I even made custom sun visors out of Alcantara. Now, genuine Alcantara is fantastic for a lot of reasons. You know, it feels great. It looks great. It's hydrophobic. It's got a lot of really cool stuff going for it. But because it's got all that stuff going for it, it is expensive. Generally speaking, if you're to go to a shop and buy Alcantara, or to a wholesaler's, you're going to pay somewhere between £100 and £200 a metre. It's expensive. Now, I was lucky enough that I found a supplier who sorted me out and I got 10 metres for £700. So I reckon I've used just north of £600 worth of Alcantara in this car. So let's just call it 600. That's a big start. The next most common thing you see is suede, and there's quite a bit of that. I've used it on the seats, of the middle of the seats and on the headrests and the lower parts of the doors, and on this new fancy center console that I've just finished making. Now, there are actually two different suedes used in this car. There's a thicker 1mm. It's a bit softer, but it's also a bit more rugged and versatile. And that's on the stuff that you touch. That's on the seats and it's on the steering wheel. So that's the really good stuff. I used about 22 square feet of that. So one really big hide. And that cost me about £250 to have shipped over from Spain. The other stuff that's on the lower parts of the doors and on the center console is a much thinner suede. It's about 0.5, 0.6 millimeters. Not quite as nice, and it doesn't, feel quite as good, but it's on the areas that you don't touch. So I'm not so worried. That was a 15-foot hide that I used for that, and that cost me about £80. Then there's leather. And again, there's two forms of leather. We have on the seats got the, again, thicker, nicer Italian Napa leather. It does need a bit of a treatment process, I will admit, but we're going to actually be filming a video about treating leather in your car this week. So that's getting done. But again, on the seats, I used about another 22 square feet to do both seats. And that ran me another £250. And then there's a couple of bits of a different leather, a soft one that's just used here on the armrest and on a couple of panels in the boot. I actually had that leather lying around already. I don't know how long I've had it or how much it costs, but I'm going to estimate, let's say £20 for all the leather to do those bits. Then we've got obviously a bunch of subsidiary costs. There's the dye that I use to re-dye the carpets and the floor mats. £20. Various threads, so whether that's black thread for sewing everything together, or red top stitch thread to do all the detailing, or the waxed red leather thread to do the inside of the steering wheel. I reckon 30 quid on threads. And similarly, paint. I've painted a bunch of things, whether it's freshening up bits of the plastic or dechroming the driver's gauge surround or the door handles. There's a few cans of different kinds of black plastic paint. 30 quid, maybe, in that ballpark. There's my shift knob and boot that come from Likewise. I think that was £75. And there's some small touches of vinyl which is the same vinyl wrap that I've got on the exterior of the car, just to bring a little bit of the colour onto the inside. It's negligible. £2, maybe, if that. I'm not going to count this one. But then there's a big thing, and it's the carbon fibre parts. Now, the carbon fibre parts are the only thing on this interior that I didn't personally make. I have a friend, Dan, who runs a carbon fibre production company called Rival Works. He needed some 3D modelling doing. I needed some carbon fibre stuff. We did a skill swap and produced things for one another. So I didn't pay to have these carbon fibre parts made. But when I spoke to Dan and said, I'm making a video about the cost of the interior of my car, what would you charge somebody to make these parts? And he said, a normal person in off the street, you want a kit like that done, probably £1,000. So that's where I'm going to put the cost of that, at £1,000. So when you look around the car, that's all the stuff you can see that's been changed. But there's a bunch of bits that you can't see that do add to the effect and feel of this car that I need to include. And that is my custom one-off center console, all of the audio upgrades, and all of the sound deadening. The sound deadening is inside all of the doors. It's underneath all of the floor. It's underneath all of the boots. It's around the arches of the wheels. It's everywhere. I used 110-ish square feet of sound deadening panels across the entire car. Yeah, it added 20 kilos to the weight of the car, but it makes a huge difference to how it actually feels inside here. So for me, who doesn't race this car a lot, maybe a little bit, but not a lot, it's made a huge difference for like a nice driving touring car. Cost of all that, £150. Not too bad, but several days of work. Then this fancy center console thing is a bastardized version of the original center console, cut up, some 3D printing, some Bondo, some fiberglass, just a bunch of different like manufacturing materials that were put together to build this thing. Not actually that expensive, probably £20 of material. And then lastly, there's the audio upgrades, which is really the only thing in this car that I haven't finished. I've currently obviously updated the head unit. There's an amp behind it, new speakers to my side, new speakers behind me. But we need to build a custom integrated Need for Speed style sub solution in the boot. That's coming over winter. But for now, the head unit is what a lot of people would consider a Chinesium one, but it's Android 11, it's very good. It's their flagship model. It's the EKIYT7 with the highest amount of RAM. It's like 8 gig RAM. It's very quick. It's very responsive. It does everything I want to do in this car and more. Got loads of apps running on it that are really useful. So that's really good. And that's actually very inexpensive for what it was. So that was about £130. Then there's a camera amp that I can't show you, but it sits behind here. That was, I think, about £80. Then there's the speakers. So in the doors and in the door bottoms and in the little tweeters, I've got a pair of a Focal RCX 165 component speakers. Very nice. They do the job fantastically, sound great. They were £140. Then behind me in the two rear spots for speakers, I've got a pair of Focal AS165s. Very similar. They support those ones really well, but they're coax speakers. Less expensive, £90. Altogether, sounds very good. There's actually behind me a Pioneer, one of those under-seat sub-box things. It's £120. I'm not going to count it because it's coming out. It's all getting replaced with the new integrated subsystem in the next few months. And I think, unless I'm missing anything, that's my whole custom interior. So if we add up the Alcantara, the suede, the leather, all the subsidiary bits, the audio and the sound deadening, we get a grand total of £1,965 without the carbon fibre. And then, so if we add 1,000 on for that, £2,965. Oh, I forgot the interior glow. So that's another 40. So £3,005. £3,000 on an interior. That's a lot of money to build an interior. And that's obviously without any costs of things that I had, like a 3D printer, a digital cutter, an industrial sewing machine, all of the hand tools. If you actually wanted to make all of this stuff yourself, you'd probably need to spend £1,000 on equipment to actually be able to do it. And that's also without thinking about labor costs. I dread to think how many hours I've put into this thing. Several hundred is the answer. So I would dread to think you could easily pay somebody £3,000 to £4,000 of labor costs to do all of this easily. So if you wanted to go out and do all this yourself, you're probably looking at 3 to 4K. If you wanted to pay someone to it, £7+ pounds. Is it worth it? Well, actually, yeah, I think it is. Because every time I go to a show or a meet and somebody gets in the car, they're like, oh my God, this feels awesome in here. You know, it looks really unique without feeling audacious and over the top. When I drive it, it feels nice. It feels quiet, other than obviously the ruckus exhaust. And it looks, you know, there's not a lot of road noise because of all of the dampening, and the audio now sounds fantastic because it's been upgraded from the 20-year-old system, and everything feels very nice. Everything feels like it's like a warm hug. I was driving home from a meet the other day, just down the motorway, just sat at 70 miles an hour, and I was just like, it just feels really, really pleasant, especially with the consistent amber glow of everything inside the cabin. It does have a couple of minor drawbacks, though. Alcantara gets sun bleached, so the tops of the doors and the tops of the dashboard are a bit lighter now compared to a year ago when I first installed them, but I actually like it. I think the kind of like lighter grey stops it feeling too dreary, stops it feeling too like black on black on black. So I've not got a problem with that. The big pain, though, is the fact that now all of the materials around me are materials. There's no plastic. There's nothing you can wipe clean. Everything needs vacuuming and then vacuuming again and then brushing. So you can't just clean it. You got to clean it and then brush it. There's a lot more work to maintaining it. And that's something you need to consider if you were going to take on making some kind of interior like this, because you don't just install it and you're done. You install it and then you have to work on it all the time. So now that I've done all this, I guess I'm finished, right? What project cars are ever finished? Let's be honest. There's not really a lot I need to do, though. The steering wheel is great, but when I put the Suede on, I neglected to put a foam padder underneath it. So it's lost a little bit of its squidge, which often just helps you maintain a nice comfortable grip. So I'm thinking I'm going to take off the steering wheel wrap and then just put a small foam rubber, padding underneath it. So of that I've got to do. Like I say, I've got to do the Need for Speed inspired sub install. There'll be a whole video about that coming up. And I'm in the process of making this interior glow panel thing here come out and get replaced with something new and cool, which is being built over on my other channel about electronic tinker projects. That channel is Garage Tinkering, and in there we're building a new LCD screen, touch screen thing that will be able to be used to control all of the underglow. So that's coming. But really, other than those things, I think I'm done. There's nothing less to do. Fortunately, there's the whole outside of the car, and yes, I know it's wrapped, and yes, I know I've done the wheels, but body kits come in, engine mods are coming. This car's got a long way to go on its journey. And if you want to see what happens with the rest of this car, and when we get to the end, how much money we've spent on it, is going to be a horrific number, I'm sure. But if you want to see the rest of that, make sure you hit subscribe, because we've got lots and lots of videos about the process coming and teaching you about how all this stuff is done as I do it. And if you did enjoy this little roundup, make sure you give this video a thumbs up so I know. What do you think of the interior? Do you like it? Tasteful? Not what you'd go for? Let me know, because I'd love to hear what you think. Anyway, whatever you do with the rest of your day, folks, have a wicked one, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy, peeps. Bye-bye.